Okay, we're back with the bonus topic. So let's talk about legal stuff. Everybody's favorite topic, legal stuff. I am not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I don't know anything about legal stuff. Hopefully, Tim can give us some insight into this because I don't really know much about it. But anyways, documentary filmmaking. It can come with its own legal considerations. I was reading an article on IndieWire about essentially legal business contracts. Independent filmmaker. You might make the best independent film in the world, but if you want to get distributed, purchased, all that stuff, you have to make sure that you've got all the legal loopholes and legal hula hoops, I guess, gone through. And and not just talking about documentary filming, but we'll talk about just photo projects in general. What are some legal considerations or legal issues that you face doing your job? Like for instance, let's say Dylan, do you have to get model releases for anybody that you're filming? Or is it basically just doing the photojournalism thing and shooting and publishing?
I actually tend to not need those because I'm usually in public places and I kind of get like a verbal agreement. And I'm not, again, I'm just doing stills for much smaller publications right now, so not a huge, wide, broad thing. But that's definitely something I have thought about. There's a few apps I know where you can have like a model sign off on something so that you have a legal, you can legally use your photo for what you mean to use it for. But as of now, I haven't done projects on a big enough scale, I feel, to really have someone affected by that. But I know it is a huge issue, obviously, with getting people's permission to get that and publish their images. But again, I'm mostly in public places where it's legal to take images. And if someone asks me, I talk to them about it, get their verbal permission, or if they don't want, I just don't use the photo. I'm pretty honest with people about it.
Right. I mean, even though you're shooting obviously in public of people who are in public, which is of course totally in your right to do as a photographer. I mean, let's take the Python documentary you're doing. I mean, let's say you want to put all that collected work into a book, right? That you're going to sell at Barnes and Noble for whatever. I mean, do you take in consideration the fact that you're making money off of this work? It's not necessarily like you're doing a news story about pythons in the Everglades. You're creating a book called The Python Story or whatever, and you're using people's imagery. Do you ever think about somebody's going to come back to you and be like, hey, you're using my stuff in a commercial product, I want my cut, or do you think like maybe I should get model releases from these people before I publish it like in a book? Because I mean, this is a personal project for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you're publishing this stuff online, but do you have any sort of idea about publishing for the future?
I mean, I would like to do a book with it at one point, just like a small run, just somebody. But I found that, I mean, with the situations, people that I meet, that people don't like signing papers when I take their photo. Like getting the photo in the first place is tricky enough, and sometimes, and when you ask someone if you can use it for sale or for something like that, you give them a piece of paper, they tend to say no. So I'm not trying to be manipulative and just like not ask the questions they can't say no. But again, in my experience this far in my career, I haven't had, I guess, the opportunity, like the wide enough audience where that would be effective, where someone saw that they go, oh hey, that's me. He didn't ask my permission, so now I can get my money from him. I just haven't gotten to that point quite yet.
So you'll sort of take the ask forgiveness versus ask permission angle, just in case.
Yeah, right now I am,
Okay.
which isn't great, but I'm getting by with it right now.
It is what it is. All right, Tim, how about you? I mean, obviously, you've done the documentary thing, so tell us a little bit about that. What's kind of been your experience legal-wise? Any issues?
Uh, yeah, all my main characters have signed releases, but that's something that you do. It's part of the relationship that you build, I think. And I think, like in what Dylan's doing, for instance, you can't always get releases from everybody. So you get what you can, you get it from the people that you're really focused on, and then if you're looking at longer term, more commercial products at the end, then definitely you really want to get releases as often as possible, and even go back and get what you can, because I've been finding there's a lot of questions from other entities, just entities that they want to know, did you get releases for this stuff? Is this going to work? Are they going to be at risk if they take on a project that you started but they become a partner in? Do you have your ass covered? That's something that I've faced.
And that's what I read about in the article, is that, yeah, you can make this documentary and it can be, you can screen it at festivals even, but if you want somebody to actually pay for it and distribute it, they're going to want, like, all the releases and everything cleared before they even touch it, right? Because they don't want to be legally liable, because there's more than likely, they're going to go after Fox Searchlight more than they're going to go after, Tim Matsui, right?
There's a reason that movies are their own limited liability corporation. It's a separate business that isolates or insulates all the parties involved in it. And I think that any deal you end up making, with whoever that partner happens to be, they want to know that by touching your product, they are not going to get dirty. They are not going to be at risk in any way. So making sure that you have releases, that you have legal representation, that your contracts are in order, that everybody understands what their roles are, like getting all that stuff spelled out at the front end is important to being able to have a successful business relationship with any investor or potential partner when you're looking at something like a film. And if you're looking at something like a book, I think that there's probably similar things with that, but I don't know. I've never done a book, so.
How about you, Zach? I mean, you're currently working on a documentary. What's your take on this?
Usually obviously the documentary, since we're looking at it has a decent budget, we're looking at theatrical release and everything like that. Everything, I at least the ones that I've done that are relatively informal, journalistic. Like I interviewed the head of a political organization at CPAC a couple of months, like 2 months ago, and I just did a verbal agreement. I just basically asked her on camera, "It's okay if we use this for a documentary or whatever. It's no problem," and she said yes on camera. God only knows if that's that's enough. I think also, luckily, since we do a lot of adversarial type stuff, it's going to be a mixed bag. As sometimes they'll want to go over and try to attack us, but a lot of times, like, I really doubt that if she, for some unknown reason, has a problem and tries to sue us, she probably wouldn't, because she's going to end up bringing massive amount of tension to the project. So sometimes you use that. But if people are in relatively public settings and it's kind of part of a group, I usually don't, at least for my kind of journalism / I might turn it into a documentary later work. For anything sit down that's like super formal, I absolutely do, especially if I'm asking hard questions. I try to get it, always get it beforehand, if you can, because halfway through the interview, if somebody gets really ticked off at you, your questions, you don't have a chance when they're running away.
Right.
So at least that's my experience.
So really, it's just how formal and how much time you have with the subject. So you're filming, I presume, people who are, like with, I think your NRA documentary, you're probably filming people who were of high levels of leadership within the NRA, I would presume. So.
Well, I mean, I'm doubting that I'll be able to get anyone on camera from the NRA, but the people around it and everything like that. That one, I've done some very, like, on the NRA show floor stuff where it's all mainly journalism, and then I've printed it already in journalism, and then I might use it again later. I'm not quite sure what the legalese is there.
Right.
But for anything for that film, I'm going to be completely insane. I'll probably have a lawyer standing by my side.
Wow.
I absolutely expect to get sued by the NRA. I, in fact, beyond having the limited liability corporation, I have to find out, like, basically, I haven't even gotten into that part of it yet, but basically I'm going to have a massive insurance policy on it, so that if and when I do get sued, I can afford lawyers and everything else. So.
Wow. So you are fully expecting some fallout from that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the NRA does like to sue, and they have done it in the past. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my short film documentary experience, I had sort of, again, the buy-in from my main subject and the employees who worked at the establishment that I was covering. So I really didn't worry too much about them, but I was filming inside of a restaurant, and I was filming customers, so I kind of wanted their buy-in just in case they did see this later on down the road. They weren't going to bug me about it, so I just used an app on my phone, and I had them sign their name with their finger, and it was super easy. I mean, really, I kind of correlate it to getting a name and information when you're photographing someone for you're doing photojournalism. You get their name, their first name, their last name. Just the same basic idea. Instead of writing into a caption, I'm just inputting it into a release form, and then they sign it, and then at the very minimum, you know, from that perspective, hopefully my butt is covered. But you know, I figure you can't go wrong with too much unless, of course, it interrupts the flow of whatever you're trying to document. And I'm sure you're documenting something in a environment that might be more hostile to something like that. Obviously, you can't do that. But any other legal issues any of you there face in with regard to filmmaking or anything?
During my time working with BBC, what I usually like to do is if I'm filming something or if I'm working anytime I've worked with a new crew or anything like that, either if I'm running the camera or they're running the camera or there's running audio separate or a second camera, is I set ground rules for our own production. BBC had a rule that said if the person that's being interviewed asked to turn off the camera, that literally meant just the camera and the audio could keep running.
Wow.
There had to be very specific wording, and they have an entire legal set of wording, which I personally go by, unless of course it's law enforcement or certain things, or if it's somewhere that I can possibly be. I always keep the camera running. It will take them physically arresting me to stop having turn off the camera unless I decide to turn off the camera. So I mean, and in most, I've never had I've never even heard of a scenario, at least, and this is not necessarily in documentary, but in journalism, that unless you, especially in New York State, you have one party consent for recording. So
Right.
I mean, that's another thing. Also, if you're doing documentary stuff, you got to know the state that you're working in, and the state that you're in is the only thing that matters. So if you're calling someone, it's the only thing that matters. It's a one-party consent in New York. Doesn't matter what it is in the other state. At least that's always been my understanding. I'm sure Mickey from the NPPA might probably call us later on and go, Zach, you're giving bad information. but that's always what I've worked in, and I've yet to get sued.
Mickey should have like a bat symbol that we can just turn on, and he can be like, "Oh, I've got to respond to the show." He can just jump on the show and be like, "All right, Zach, shut up. You're going to be held
Stop
liable.
giving out legal advice."
You're going to be held liable for this."
Yeah.
But all right, anybody else have anything else to add before we sign off on our bonus segment? Dylan?
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
Don't think so, no.
All right. All right. Well, again, Dylan, Tim, thank you for coming on, doing the bonus segment with me. And if you're listening to this or watching it, I appreciate you participating and being a part of the show and supporting the show, hopefully, maybe. But that's pretty much it for me. I will see you all next week.